Welcome to the Dog Point Podcast, episode 13. Today's topic is a day in the life of a dog trainer. And with me today is my son Michael.
Hi everyone.
So, I want to talk about how a typical day starts, but I want to tell you from the perspective of my late German Shepherd Ninja, who was a very high drive dog, and all he ever wanted to do in life was work. And dogs can hear your heartbeat, and Ninja took full advantage of it. He would know when you're waking up before you're waking up. Your heart rate increases, your breathing rate increases, and as you open your eyes, he would be standing next to the bed staring at you. So the first thing that you see when you open your eyes is a black German Shepherd head with two piercing eyes staring back at you. I can't tell you, he does it to my wife too, so I can't tell you how many times she would be hovering a foot above the mattress because she gets startled when he does that kind of thing. And that is because when he hears you waking up, he's automatically ready to work. Every living, breathing second of his life, this dog wanted to work. And it didn't matter how hot it was outside, how tired he was, he just wanted to work non-stop. Now, for training, that is good. The dog is always a willing participant. But we're not talking about training here. We're talking about living with a dog like that. And that could show itself in different ways. You get ready to go to work and you're in the shower and all of a sudden you feel something behind you and you turn around and there he is. You know, he opened the door, he opened the shower stall and he's sitting in the shower behind you, wagging his tail because he finds you're taking too long to get ready to get to work with him. Because it's all about him and him wanting to work. That is all he could think about. So, as far as he was concerned, every waking minute of your life was to be dedicated to him working. And while that sounds funny, and people say, yeah, that's a good dog, and absolutely, he was the best dog I had. But living with it, it is also sometimes difficult because you have to train other people's dogs as well. So when you have to go to work and, you know, he's trying to step in your way to prevent you from leaving because you're supposed to be working with him, you know, then that can take on some proportions that are not for the faint of heart. You know, it is not, the average dog owner cannot deal with a dog like that. You know, you have to be living, breathing dogs in order to make that a success and live with a dog like this. And he is just one dog. We have others. We have a female Rottweiler named Elena. She is more a Malinois in a black and tan Rottweiler body.
Certainly.
That dog has drive for two dogs. And she will actively step in your way. You cannot walk anywhere in the yard without her being there, staring at you, wagging her tail, as to say, okay, what are we doing now?
So yeah, so much so that if you don't force her to calm down by either putting in a crate or simply going back inside, she will want to work until she puts herself into a heat stroke. And a lot of dogs would typically, stop or lie down or show signs that they're exhausted. And even when she knows that she's exhausted, she simply just doesn't care because her drive to work is higher than her sense of care for her own well-being, which is a bit messed up, but it goes to show how high drive some working dogs can be. What I like to say is that She is the dog embodiment of that squirrel from Ice Age with the wide eyes. She literally looks like if she did a bag of snow before a training session. Every time you hold up a toy and you're ready to do some work or ready to do some fetch, the way her pupils dilate immediately, she is obsessed with wanting to work and spend time with you. I have only ever once seen that level of drive in a Rottweiler, and it's from the same kennel actually. But Elena was the first time I ever had my own personal version of this. And while a lot of the times it may be overbearing and a lot of people would be annoyed, sometimes, admittedly, even myself, I'm annoyed. I also do appreciate it when it comes to working because her relentless drive makes basically every interaction a mini training session.
Right. And that is what we signed up for as dog trainers, right? When you have working dogs, that is what happens. They want to work. They want to work all the time. And they don't care if it's convenient for you or if you're tired because you just spent your whole day training other people's dogs. The moment you come home, they are ready to go. Before you leave in the morning, they are ready to go. If you happen to have a light day and you're home during the day, they are ready to go. And sometimes you want to have one day where you could just relax, and they would not let you. You lying down on the bed and you are relaxing, and every 5 minutes this dog will come, put his head on your rib cage, or put your head on your mattress and look at you, or put a paw on you and say, "Hey, let's go and work." And it is very hard to not give into it and go outside and do something with the dog, you know. And the downside to all of this is when you then go to a client that has a very low drive dog, you know, it is sometimes not easy to find the motivation to get this dog to perform because you know he's missing this part of the genetics, he's missing drive, he's missing a number of things. And you look at this dog different even though you shouldn't. You know, you should do your best with every dog, and I am doing the best with every dog, but you cannot not compare sometimes. You know, you will take your own dogs and compare every dog to that kind of drive, to that drive level. And you get a little spoiled with that. So whenever you see other dogs that don't have the same level of drive, then it's easy to kind of, I wouldn't say dismiss, but you somewhat tend to downgrade a dog in your mind a little bit when they don't have that level of drive. And of course, you can't say it, you can't show it, but internally, this is what's going on.
I would say it's also comparable. Well, maybe comparable is not the right word, but it's sort of like when you saved up for a while, you got the car that you wanted to get, and you love and appreciate this car. You know, the car is reliable, it works exactly as you want it to. You build an attachment to the car. But then, let's just say you go on vacation and you rent a sports car, supercar, and it's like night and day. Sure, you still appreciate what you have or what's in front of you, and I think it's going to change that. But after having been exposed to something that is so much better, or in another sense, just raw and visceral, it does change your mindset because of that exposure. Because it changes your paradigm of what you think is possible or achievable when it comes to breeding a dog, training a dog, and living with a dog. And for me personally, Elena changed that. Ninja as well. I would say that Ninja had a lot more balance, because while Ninja was extremely high drive, he did have more balance in being able to stay still. But when he wasn't still, he was moving at max speed. Elaine, on the other hand, she is just constantly at 1,000%. And that's why we jokingly say that she's a Malinois in a Rottweiler's body. And going back to the morning routine, Ninja, you know, I would like to more reference the latter years in his life. On the morning, we would get up, Dad would start his routine, and I would wake up, I would make breakfast, drink some coffee, and I started this routine with him where I would always give him a banana because I would have recently started baking banana bread. So I always had bananas. And Ninja was obsessed with the smell of the banana bread. But obviously, I can't give him the banana bread. So the second best alternative would be the bananas. And of course, when you give your dog bananas, you don't want to give them the overripe bananas. You want to give them the bananas that are yellow but still have some green in the stem, because that's the best balance in terms of fiber and starch content. You can also double check that with your vet. But yes, going back to the routine. So that would be part of the routine. And if I didn't give Ninja his banana, he would give me a very cheeky look and he's like, bro, where's my banana? You haven't given me my banana yet.
Yeah, he loved bananas. You sit on the bed eating a banana and he would look at you like, you, sir, are an asshole for not sharing that. He would be very respectful about it, but he would give you that look. He would give you that look as to, so you're sitting there eating a banana in front of me and you're not sharing? What kind of thing is that?
Yeah, and he was a very expressive German Shepherd. You could see it in his eyes, and he also had a lot of soul in his eyes.
Yeah, and he didn't just look at something, he would stare at it. He couldn't help it. That intimidated a lot of people. A lot of people were afraid of him because of it. Because he would not just look, he would stare. Because this dog not only had high drive, he was also extremely intelligent. And shout out to his breeder, Roger Barkley from Royal Valley Kennels. Did a fantastic job with his dog, and will be forever grateful for him giving me this dog. And that dog, there's nothing this dog could not have done. So we did some obedience with him. We did some protection with him. We trained him to be a narcotics detection dog. And he excelled at all of this. He's the type of dog that you could switch on and off like a remote control. And not just in sport, but in real life. You could be talking to a few people in front of you for an hour, and he would sit there totally relaxed. And for no reason whatsoever, you switch him on, he is ready to bite whoever you point at a second's notice. Not because they did anything, just because you said go. And then at the same token, you can switch him off just as fast and tell him, okay, sit, cool it. And he would be back to normal, just like that. He was able to emotionally divorce himself from the action. I've not seen that in many dogs. He would just do it because that's what you're asking him to do. And as far as he was concerned, that was his job.
Yeah, his bond was really good with you. I mean, it was good with all of us, but especially you. And I even remember on mornings when you went to water the plants, he would always trips behind you and walk with you. And then he would dart off, possibly to get some mangoes if it was mango season. And then he would come back, then you drink some water, and he would always try to drink the water that you were pouring out of the can.
Yeah, you couldn't water a plant pot without him trying to take a sip. He loved water, and he would, any water, whether it comes out of a hose or out of a watering can, he didn't care. Once water comes out somewhere, he must chase it. He must drink it, he must interfere with it in some form or fashion. And again, that is his drive. That was his high drive. That was his, way of putting his drive to work somehow. And now we have Force, a male Rottweiler, who is very high in drive himself, but Force has a distinct off switch. Something that Ninja and especially Elena, who he is related to, doesn't have. Elena doesn't have an off switch. The only time she switches off completely is when you put her in a crate. Outside of that, she is on full RPM. Whereas Force will switch off. He will hang out with you, he will, snooze away, snore like a big man when he's sleeping. But when you go outside with him and you pick up a tug or a Kong toy or a ball or anything like that, game over. His drive skyrockets and he's ready to go. Just like that. And then when he comes back inside, back to off switch.
Yeah, he actually loves to come inside because of the AC.
Yeah.
We have no problems whatsoever bringing him in on a morning or afternoon because you just say inside and he walks in. He's like, sure, I get to go back in the AC. Cool. No problem. And sometimes he tries to be sneaky and bring his Kong toy inside, but you just have to tell him out and he'll watch you a bit and then be like, okay, fine. And then he will drop it and then he'll go inside.
Or anything else that he picked up.
Yeah, like a tree branch.
Or he's hiding a mango in his mouth.
Yeah. Or he'd walk with the breadfruit.
And because of his big, big mouth, the mango disappears in it. And you only notice that he has something in his mouth because he's not panting. And he just comes from outside, where we have 32 degrees and 70% humidity, and he's not panting. And that only happens when he's trying to hide something in his mouth that he's trying to smuggle into the house. So you have to catch that and make him drop it before he gets to come in. Otherwise, he creates a mess inside the house.
Yeah, so that basically highlights how much you need to be mentally and physically ready to own and live with a working dog. A lot of times people will contact us, whether it's friends or customers, and be like, I want a dog to do X, Y, and Z. And we have to tell them that, okay, here's the reality. If you want a dog that can do personal protection, or you want a dog that can do this, you need to get a working dog. When you get a working dog, you can't expect it to then be this calm dud. Yes, you can get working dogs that are clear in the head and are stable and do have an off switch, but it's not the same as a cool, calm couch potato. Working dogs want to work, and if you do not fulfill that desire, you're going to have a nightmare on your hands. You're going to have property damage and you're going to have a lot of stress because you got this dog that constantly wants to work and you're not mentally and physically stimulating it. So it's a recipe for disaster. Living with a working dog is not for the faint-hearted. You're going to have a lot of challenges. They're going to constantly test you. And they're always going to push your boundaries in terms of what you're willing to handle or work with. There are a lot of times when you're calm or you want to relax and they're like, yo, let's work. What are you doing? Why are we doing nothing? You're going to go out? You're going to go out with the van? You're going to go with the car? All right, let's go. Take me with you. I want to go with you. And they're going to harass you and they're going to whine. And they're going to constantly guilt trip you. This look like, what are you doing? Why aren't we working? Come on, let's go.
Yeah, and so they don't care if it's Sunday and that is your only day off and you're trying to relax. They don't give a shit about that. They say, hey, dude, you're home. Let's work. You're not out working with other dogs, so it's my turn. So you're tired, you spent your whole week working with other people's dogs, and now it's time to work with your dog. And it's not always easy. It's different for somebody who sits in an office during the day and is kind of stationary and is looking forward to the physical activity. But it's a different thing when you're a dog trainer and you're training dogs all day. And then you come home in the evening time to meet a dog that now wants to work. Or in our case, three of them. We have Force, we have Elena, and we have Heidi. All three working dogs, all three high drive. Heidi is slowing down a little bit because she's 9 years old now. But show her a toy. If you have a biting a tug toy, you can still swing a 360 degrees with her horizontal hanging onto the tub at 9 years because her drive is just pushing through all of this. And so it's easy to say, yeah, I want a working dog that can do X, Y, and Z, but it's a totally different thing living with a dog like this. And if you're lucky enough and your dog has an off switch like Force does, that's great. But most working line dogs don't have that. The moment you get up and go to the washroom and come back, number one, you get a 16-point inspection as if you were disappearing for 2 weeks. And you just went to the washroom and came back and you were in their line of sight all the time, but they must sniff you top to bottom and check you out because as far as they're concerned, you left to go into another room and you need to get checked when you come back. That is one. And two, if you make the mistake and make eye contact too long, they say, oh, you're ready to work. Great, let's go. And you just happen to look at your dog to admire, the dog that you have. And they take it, okay, so you're ready then. So no matter how tired you are, now you're getting up, you're going outside and you're doing some work with your dog, whether you like it or not. Because if you have a working breed and you don't work it and you don't give them a job and you don't give them something to do, both physically and mentally, more so mentally, then you get problem behaviors. They find something to do. And 99% of the time, you're not going to like what they find to do.
Yeah.
That is anything from peeling off the bumper skin from your bumper to changing out the wiring harness under your pickup truck to you name it. Turn one garden hose into 8 garden hoses. So oftentimes when you get that high level of destruction, it's because you have a working dog and you're not working it.
And that leads me into another one of my points, that a lot of people aren't aware or prepared for the overall cost of owning a working dog. Because as you said, the property damage, things that they're going to destroy, the troublesome situations that they're going to get themselves into, it's all going to cost money. Sometimes you turn away for like 15 minutes and they've suddenly eaten something or bit something or somehow found a way to injure themselves somehow. And all of a sudden, an hour later, you're by the vet and before you know it, you've at least spent $1,000.
Yeah, so look at Force, right? So he shoots off and he's doing some zoomies and doing laps around the house. Nothing wrong with that. But we had some heavy rain a few days before, for a few days continuously. So one part of the yard was a little more muddy than the rest. And he's running at top speed and he's making a turn. And his body turned, but the feet that sunk into the mud did not follow the body at the same speed. And he tore his ACL. That took him out of training for a year. Now, can you imagine a dog with that drive level not really training for a year? Do you know how much he's going to test your sanity, especially if that dog is living in the house with you. He's going to drive you crazy. I can guarantee you that. And it was not easy, and it was frustrating at times to having to deal with that. But you can't let him do certain things because he's not ready. He's not healed enough yet to do it. He wants to do it, but you can't let him. That is hard.
And during his recovery phase, I actually experienced that the most because while you were working, while mom was out, I had to see about him. I had to supervise him. I had to carry him out in a leash because, according to vet orders, he wasn't allowed to walk freely on his own and had to be on a leash because of his knee injury. And it's not easy when this heavy Rottweiler, despite him being a puppy and despite him having his injured knee, have its muscle atrophy, he was still very strong. And even though he was injured, because of his sheer drive, he would still try to pull heavily on a leash. He would even lean to use his weight and lower center of gravity to pull me, even though it may have caused him some pain, simply because of his sheer level of drive. And this is why we always stress that when you get a high drive working dog, it's not easy. They are literally a next level and a totally different echelon.
Yeah, and I have seen other trainers do little experiments with high drive dogs. So they want to breed a herder just as an experiment and mix the very high drive German Shepherd with a very high drive Malinois. And the first message that I sent to them was my condolences, because you're gonna drive yourself crazy raising that litter. And they sent back a laughing emoji because they knew exactly what I was talking about. And shout out to Black Kraken Canine in Canada, and all of their dogs that have found homes now, they are all exceptional in drive. They're as batshit crazy as it gets, but stable. And I would want to commend them for breeding that litter. And they said it's a one-off. They just wanted to test it out, and it was very successful. And the people who have the dogs are amazed as to what those dogs can do. When you have high drive dogs like this, you need to put them to work. Absolutely, there's no way around that. You cannot expect that dog to just hang out with you and be calm. It's not how it's gonna work. And a lot of the calls that I'm getting are from people who fell into that trap. So they saw a John Wick movie and wanted a Malinois after, and then found out the hard way what it entails. And they say, how do I deal with this now? And I had to show them ways on how they can physically and mentally occupy their dog. And some of them rehomed their dog because it was just too much dog for them, and they couldn't deal with it. It looks all nice when you look at videos of the end product and they're fully trained and they're performing crazy stunts and stuff, and that's nice. But it's another thing living with it. It's a different kettle of fish, I can guarantee you that. It is not for everybody. You have to have a certain mindset where you know what you get yourself into and you know you're going to get punished for it, but you do it anyway. That is the type of person that should have dogs like that. Okay? It's a different sphere of dog ownership. It is not for the average dog owner at all. And I wish more people would, do their research and check on those things, because it creates a lot of problems and it creates a lot of unnecessary problems. And oftentimes the dog gets blamed for it, but it's not the dog's fault. The dog was born as a high drive dog, as it was intended to. It's not the dog fault that you had some big plans and then fell short on it. Okay? That's on you. That has nothing to do with the dog.
The wonderful thing with high drive dogs, I would say, is the bond. Now, in saying that, I don't mean to offend or say that you can't have a fantastic bond with dogs that don't necessarily have high drive. I'm just saying from my own personal experience, having had both medium, I would say medium drive and high drive dogs, the bond with a high drive dog is totally different. It's on another level because of the fact that they're always forcing you to work and you always have to spend time with them. You always have to work with them. You always have to play. You always have to tug of war, fetch, all of these things. You always have to go on some adventure to a park, to a beach. It forces you to spend so much more time that you inevitably form an extremely strong bond. And there's something that I can't necessarily put into words, but the experience of working with them, you sort of zone out everything and you tend to live in the present while training with them. And a lot of the times you just tend to be in sync and connected. It doesn't always happen, of course. Sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect. Maybe either your or your dog's head is not in the game. But for the times that both of you are on the same page and you have that synergy, it's an amazing experience. And I know some people who are listening do understand what I mean, but for those of you who haven't necessarily experienced that, the day that you do experience that is going to be a game changer. And it's almost addictive at some point because you always want to have that feeling when it comes to working with your dog. And then your dog also develops that craving to have that bonding time with you, spend time with you, always want to do something with you because they see you as their joy, their world. Whereas humans, we have, we have work, we have bills, we have family to see, we have TV to watch, games to play, all these other things. These dogs just eat, pee, poop, and the rest of the
And
time
work.
is their free time to work and sleep. And when they're not sleeping, they just simply want to work until they're tired. And bet you bottom dollar, while they're sleeping, the dreams that they're having is probably going to be something that's intense. Because the drive goes beyond just the physical capabilities of a dog, but that also manifests itself into the mental capabilities and vice versa. And because of that, I mean, I'm not sure. I am not looking at a scan of a dog's brain while they're sleeping. But sometimes you can see it from the twitching. There's clearly something interesting going on there. They're clearly doing something. Sometimes you can see that your dog is playing some sort of game in their sleep or chasing something. And having a high drive dog just creates, as I said before, not to sound repetitive, but it just creates a next level bond.
Yeah, there's a difference between a bond with a pet dog and a working bond with a dog. It is two different things. You can be very close to a pet dog, and the dog will love you to bits, and you love the dog, and that's cool. But when you have a working relationship with your dog and a working bond, it goes so much deeper. It is a different level of living. And the downside is when you have high drive dogs and you learn to work with them, you can't go back. You can't go back to a low drive dog.
Nope.
For anything. For you personally, it's just not happening. Anytime you choose a dog, you're looking for a dog with higher drive and higher drive and higher drive. because you have gotten so addictive to it that you can't stop. It is addictive, no doubt, but it's also very rewarding. If you're living with multiple working breeds, the day does not belong to you anymore. That's the reality. You have to be dedicated to those dogs. You have to be working those dogs. You have to be seeing about those dogs. Um, Dogs with that level of drive, they do get injured because they cross a limit at some point. It just happens. And then you have to try and keep them calm, which is the furthest thing from their mind. That is the last thing they want to do, is be calm. That is the absolute last thing. They hate nothing more than being calm. They want to work and go, 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 go all the time. So when you have to confine them and you have to put them in a crate, you have to switch off the emotion and know that the only safe place for them right now while they're injured is inside that crate. Because even if you have them in the house and you have them loose in a room, they will move more than they're supposed to because of their drive. That is like a human drinking 2 cans of espresso and you're asking them to sit quietly on a chair. It's not going to happen. That person is going to shake a leg, get up, walk around the chair, do something just to move. That is how working dogs are non-stop. That is how they are all the time. Okay? I want to discourage anybody who does not have a job for their dog from acquiring a working line dog. Because you're not going to do yourself any favors, you're not going to do the dog any favors, and you're going to set yourself up for a whole heap of frustration. It's not going to be pretty.
Another thing I see online when I read the comments on the dog point page sometimes, or on the comment section of other dog trainers, is that some pet dog owners would comment things like, oh, you're overworking dog, or oh, this is animal abuse, and all sorts of crazy things. And they don't understand that if you left this dog and you just recorded them standing there, they want to do this level of work. Nobody's forcing them to do this level of work. They literally want to do that. For them, it's a source of joy. It's a source of fun. It's mentally stimulating to them. I would encourage you to look up videos of border collies, for example, doing herding. That's what they want to do all the time. They're chock full of energy and want to do that. They want that job. They want that stimulation. It's actually one of the few breeds that don't necessarily even need a reward to work. They get their own satisfaction from working because they love working so much. Like for example, another mastiff that people think is typically just for personal protection, but actually is used in herding in some mountainous areas, correct me if I'm wrong, is the Presa Canario. And people get this breed in this weight class, because mastiffs are very heavy, and then are surprised when they're so protective of the family and don't want to be social with their friends and other relatives. But you got this mastiff that's genetically going to be autonomous and is going to be protective, and in its genetics, its job is to herd and protect the farm or the land. So you have to have realistic expectations. You have to research the breed. You have to make sure, is the dog I'm getting a dog that needs a job, or can I just chill with this dog? You have to be realistic, because it's as Dad said, it's going to be unfair to both you and the dog. If you want a couch potato that's not going to do anything and that's chill, get like an English Mastiff, for example, or get a Basset Hound, or get an English Bulldog or French Bulldog. Well, there are some Frenchies that are a bit feisty, but you can't get lazy French Bulldogs.
Or get a French Mastiff.
Yeah.
After they get through the puppy stage, they tend to be quite lazy, especially in warmer climates. They just lie down most of the day and, you know, count down the hours, which is fine. If you're looking for a dog that is just hanging out with you, yeah, you can get one of those breeds. But if you have a working breed, you need to occupy that brain because you will not like what your dog is finding to do. They will engage in activities to stimulate their brain and their body, and you're not gonna like that activity. A working line dog needs a job, especially males. There's too many people that I see that have these dogs and they're not prepared for it. They're not ready for that level of activity. And it leads to a lot of problems. You have to have a job for your dog. If you choose a working line breed, you need to know what you're gonna do with that dog before you get it. You must have a plan. Because if you don't have a plan, you're gonna be in the world of hurt. And I know we keep repeating that, but if you get the type of calls that I'm getting on a daily basis with mismatched dogs, where people have dogs that are way beyond their skill level in terms of drive, then you would say the same thing. I see it every single day. And I have to then give people the wake up call and tell them, okay, you love your dog, you don't want to get rid of it, so here's what you need to do. And then find some activity, whether it's anything from frisbee to doing obedience, go on hikes and whatnot, to keep those dogs occupied.
And going back to the point of the bond with your dog, I see some people express online that, they just have a dog and they don't do this and they don't do that. And, well, while everybody is within their right to do that, I personally think that if you make the conscious decision to have a dog, you have the responsibility and you owe it to the dog to spend some time with them, bond with them, and you'll be surprised at how much that not only mentally stimulates the dog, but it also mentally helps you. It may help you to de-stress. It may help with your anxiety. It may help with your depression. Of course, I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, so you'd have to do your own independent research to see the exact studies. But at least personally for me, it's mentally stimulating. And sometimes, maybe not all the time, but sometimes spending time with dogs calms me down whenever I'm stressed, or it might make me happy, or even when I'm feeling fine. It just feels nice to spend time with the dog and see them being happy. The same way how sometimes it may make people feel good to make others happy, as in other humans, it can also make you feel happy by making your dog happy. Seeing them self-actualizing, they feel a sense of purpose, because maybe you haven't thought about it before, and it's obviously not it's not at the same level as a human, but dogs do feel a sense of purpose. They may not think about it obviously at the same intellectual capacity as a human, but they do have and crave a sense of purpose. And if you give them that, it's going to make their life a lot more fulfilling, and they're going to feel a lot more loved, and they're going to be happy, and they're not just going to be bored right through and just mope around the place being bored and just, living through the day and weeks and months and years.
And to me, there's nothing more rewarding than seeing a working dog letting it rip. To see a working dog running at full speed. To see Rottweilers like a fight. To see her play tug of war with a Rottweiler who is trying to shake the snot out of that tug toy, and you're almost hurting your shoulder just accommodating him with it. That to me is the greatest thing on earth. That is what they're bred for. That is what they're meant to do. And to see them in their element doing that, that is a very rewarding thing for me as a trainer. It just warms my heart, seeing them in their element and seeing them doing what they love to do. And it's just the kind of the kind of dopamine that I produce when I'm watching that, or when I'm working with my dogs doing that, and see them really put 100% into it. Just look at all the videos that I put out with Force. In most of them, you will see him not wearing a single piece of equipment. Because I want to show people that when you have that bond with your dog, and you have that relationship with your dog, that working relationship, and you have their prize, which is a tug toy, you have that in your hand, and you see what lengths they will go to get it. Without you pulling on a leash, without you doing anything else other than asking them what you taught them. Asking them to do what you taught them. And then when they execute it the correct way, then they get their reward. That facial expression when you say yes and you give them access to their toy and they get that game of tug, that is the greatest feeling on earth. And I'm gonna wrap it up with that, because that is like a drug by itself. To get that satisfaction, seeing your dog enjoying himself or herself to the max, doing what they love, and you in a position to make that happen for them, that is the greatest feeling on earth. So with this, folks, we're gonna wrap up this podcast. I hope it gave you some insight as to what it entails to live with a working breed, and what we as trainers go through on a daily basis with our own dogs. And hope you enjoyed it, and see you in the next episode.